Michigan.
Okay, sounds good. You got a good fire? Throw me something good.
You tell me whatever you want me to say.
Tell me my good old region of Michigan.
Yeah, they'll see the strings coming down there.
Michigan in a few weeks. What's the difference?
You're going into Michigan and all where?
I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. Yeah, you're over toward the west side, and you're over the west side. Yeah, I was gonna say, you were in the Franklin, that's town worth going to, sightseeing. That's, Michigan's over like.
Today I changed it up. Usually I sit where I sit on a building, whether it's pews or chairs. I just sit in the same spot.
Yeah, you can get around 2.5 hours, you can cross. If you take a look at it, you see how far over there. If you go over to the Franklin, I spent a couple of days there. It's a German town, has tourism, sightseeing, tourists. And if you go over there, settlers and the very legal across the street from each other, they both serve old-style chicken dinner across the street. It's worth to do it. And one of those things, is vendors.
No, all I'm thinking is there's no time to get to that island.
Oh, Mackinac Island?
I don't think.
You're over here, you got to get up here, and then you got to take a ferry all over the island.
But you know what?
I'll tell you what, Mackinac Island?
Michigan, like going in there too early.
Want to see a lot. Yeah. I'll talk to you more about it later. Good to see everybody. That was the sound of time for Bible class to begin. And we are glad to have you here. We'll ask you to come in and find a spot. Glenelle, wonderful to see you. She said she was going to make it today. This is the first time since she's been in the hospital. Just a thrill. We're going to hang on for you. Take your time.
Gotcha. Come on. How you doing?
This is Glenelle's spot right up here, and it's been empty for a while, and we're glad to have her back.
Dan, you remember her?
This Chloe?
Chloe?
Chloe, good to see you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody.
I don't know who that young man is, but I'm betting he's following Chloe.
Yeah. Well, tell him your name.
First name? All right, good to have you here. Thanks for coming today. We love visitors, love guests coming our way, and we hope and pray that if you're visiting with us today, this is rewarding to your faith journey, and that you'll enjoy the good congregation here at Owasso. We are going to be introducing a guest speaker today. Keno Shrum and his wife Jamie are here, and Keno is going to be speaking us today, and then this evening. And this evening there's an extended hour. So we have a 5 o'clock and we have a 6:30, and hope you'll be here for both of those. And then Monday night, 2 sessions, Tuesday night, 2 sessions, and I hope you'll carve out time in your calendar to be here. It's going to be very rewarding. The theme is about evangelism. Keno has been a neighbor of ours at the Coweta Church of Christ since 1990. He serves as one of the 3 elders there currently, and had been the preacher there since, I believe, 2015, until he accepted his new role with House to House, Heart to Heart School of Evangelism. And now they have a son and a son-in-law who are helping with the preaching there and doing a fantastic job. Keno has a great track record of soul winning. He has a lot of good things to share with us. He and Jamie have been married now, I think around March. They celebrated their 30th year wedding anniversary. They're proud of their kids, their son-in-law, all faithful Christians, and what a reward and blessing that is. Keno loves evangelism. He has much to share with us today and in the next few days. And so I encourage you to be present at each of the sessions. And you want to either pick up a flyer by the bulletins out there or just a bulletin. We have a printout of the schedule in the bulletin if you'll keep that handy so that you can be aware of that. We're going to bow for a word of prayer. We're going to sing a couple verses of a song, and then Keno will come speak to us. Let's bow, please. Father in heaven, thank you for your many blessings. It's a joy to be gathered as Christians. We're glad, Father, for the opportunity to do so, to be cleansed in the blood of your Son, that we might approach your throne of grace, and are so grateful we can do that in confidence in him. Bless us to be a blessing to others. Equip us with your truth and give us the courage to speak forth that good gospel message. We pray, Father, you'll open doors that we might enter into to make a difference in the lives and the eternities of other people and our own as well. Bless this congregation, her leaders, and the many servants who gather here from week to week. And we pray your blessings on Keno today as he speaks to us, that we will take to heart the things he shares with us and put it to good work. And we offer this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. And if you would put that song up on the screen for me and walk us through that as we sing together. Huh? Okay, something's not working? How about if I turn the mic on? I thought, oh boy. All right. Things work better when they're turned on. That's still too loud. Work it over up there for me. Did I talk loud enough for you to hear all those other things, or do I have to start again? We're good? All right. Now, do we have that song up there? Great. Let's work on that. We'll sing a couple verses of that, and then Keno will speak to us. To the work, we are servants of God. Let us follow the path that our Master has trod. With the balm of his counsel, our strength to renew. Let us do with our might what our hands find to do. Toiling on, toiling on, toiling on, toiling on. Let us hope, let us watch, and labor till the Master comes. To the work, the hungry be fed. To the fountain of life, let the weary be led. In the cross and its banner, our glory shall be. While we herald the tidings, salvation is free. Toiling on, toiling on, toiling on, toiling on. Let us hope, let us watch, and labor till the Master comes. Keno, if you would come speak to us.
Be here this morning. I met a lot of you last year. I came up when Rob Whitaker was here, and so I know a lot of you by face. I may not know your name, but But I recognize your faces, and so it's good to be here again this morning. I've been crossing paths with Dan for quite a number of years now, it seems like, and we were blessed to have him and come down, and Gwen come down, and he spoke at our lectureship this spring. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I don't know if you know this or not, but you got a pretty good preacher here. You got a real good preacher. We really enjoyed him at Coweta, and so we had a good time spending that time with him. I'll stick it in my pocket. That'll work like that. So I've been at Coweta, like Dan said, for about 30 years, 36 years as a member. I preached there for about 10 years. But about 2023, I had the opportunity to come on as a regional trainer for the House to House School of Evangelism. We'd seen significant growth in the congregation there at Coweta during that time. And so it worked out. Rob asked me if I would come on and help out in the Tulsa area. If we had any congregations that were maybe going through the training that might have questions, and I could help them to work through that. So I agreed to do that. At the time, I was preaching, full time, and I was also running a construction company full time. But I told him, I could carve out a little bit of time to do that. And so he asked me a few months later, he said, Keno, would you go to Houston, Texas and work with a congregation? I said, sure, Rob, I'd love to do that. And a few weeks later, he said, Keno, could you go to San Antonio and work with a congregation? I said, okay, I'll do that, Rob. And then he said, Keno, I need you to go out to Elk City, Oklahoma. I said, okay, Rob, I'll go there. Keno, could you go to South Haven, Mississippi? Keno, could you go to Steele, Missouri? Keno, could you go to Sanford, North Carolina? I said, Rob, I need to work full time, or I need to not work at all. I can't do. I have a commitment at Coweta, plus I have a business to run. And so about a year and a half ago, I started working full time with the School of Evangelism. When Rob goes to congregation, he brings a lot of information. You know that. You've heard the seminar, and you know that. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. And trying to absorb all that information is very, very difficult. But it's important information. It's stuff that you need to know that's going to help you to start moving in the right direction. Because when we talk about the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 and 20, when he says, Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I command you, and lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the age. Folks, you have to know that is a divine mandate. That's not a recommendation. It's not a suggestion. We will absolutely stand before our Lord, every single one of us. Not as a congregation, but individually, we will all stand before our Lord on that great day of judgment and answer for whether or not we have fulfilled that commandment. In John chapter 14, verse 15, Jesus says what? If you love me, do what? Keep my commandments. So if we don't keep his commandments, can we say that we love him? Now, I understand a lot of us haven't evangelized in our life. And I understand the reasons why. But the primary reason is we don't know how. And you don't know what you don't know. We sat around in Coweta and got smaller and smaller and smaller for 36 years. We were in the 90s. We were in the 90s, like the early 90s, 1990s, we were running about 90 members. And we had quite a few leave whenever we had that little spell where American Airlines had transferred a lot of jobs. McDonnell Douglas had closed down, so a lot of people went to Oklahoma City. They went to Dallas to follow their jobs. And then in 2015, we were down in the upper 30s, and we had 6 members that one year pass away. And so we'd gotten very... I don't know, you might say discouraged, but I think we'd just gotten into a lull of thinking, well, you can't evangelize in America anymore. Like, no one wants to hear it. You can't grow in America. And I think a lot of people have that exact same mindset, and that's the reason the church is shrinking by the numbers that it is. We're losing a little over 18,000 members of the church every single year in the United States of America. Every 3 days we have a congregation closing their doors. Friends, I was in Town Creek, Alabama, at the Hatton Church of Christ last summer. And their elders told me in that county alone, they have lost 4 congregations in 1 year. So we see some congregations that say, well, we're growing. We had 50 members last year. We got 150 this year. Yeah, because 4 other congregations in your county closed down and the members came to you. If we're not baptizing, then the kingdom is not growing. So we've got to be baptizing. We've got to figure this out. How are we going to fulfill the mission that our Lord has given us to fulfill? So Rob brings all this information, and it's great information, and it's information that we need. But I don't know very many congregations that can process all of that. And we saw that this was the case. So when Rob hired me to come on with the School of Evangelism, it was to help him with seminars. because he was booked out 2 and 3 years, and we wanted to get to the congregations faster. And so I did that for a little while. But then he and I and Luke Griffin sat down. Luke is the director of House to House, Heart to Heart, of the House to House School of Evangelism, of Polishing the Pulpit. So we sat down and we put our heads together and we thought, how can we help these congregations that are going through the training, but they're not seeing the results they had hoped for? And we put together a continued education workshop. So for the last year, that's what I've been focused on, is doing what we're going to do here over the next 3 days. Look, I don't know very many businesses. I can almost guarantee you, wherever you work, you learn something after your first day on the job, right? You didn't come on the very first day and they say, hey, look, we're going to cover everything you'll ever need to know on day one and you'll be good to go. It doesn't work like that. I spent a number of years in law enforcement, and every single year I went to continued education classes. I know doctors take continued education, lawyers take continued education, plumbers, electricians. You're always continuing to grow. My father-in-law had some heart trouble recently, and he went to cardiologists, and they placed some stents in, and they got him doing good. He's doing very well now. He's been on the job for 40 years, on the same job, working at an elementary school. At the same school for 40 years. He just got recognized this year for 40 years at that school. And so he was talking to his cardiologist, and he started talking about retirement. And the cardiologist said, well, are you thinking about retiring? And I ask him that all the time. I'm like, Jim, when are you going to retire? You're 74 years old. When are you ever going to retire? And he said, I don't know. I might retire next year. I don't know. I might go another 5 years. I might try to make it to 50 years. But he told his cardiologist, he said, I don't know. Maybe I'll retire in a year or two. And his cardiologist said, well, what are you going to do when you retire? He said, oh, I've got about 30 acres. I got animals. I got plenty of stuff to do to keep me busy. And the cardiologist said, that's what you say right now, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to retire, and then you're going to start sitting around the house thinking, well, I can do that tomorrow. I can do that tomorrow. I can do that tomorrow. And he said, when you quit working, you start dying. And I thought, how true that is for the church. We used to work in the Church of Christ. When you go through the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, into the 70s, we were growing. 1 out of every 84 citizens of the United States of America was a member of the Church of Christ from 1967 to 1973. In 1953, the American College Dictionary changed the definition of Christian and included a member of the churches of Christ. That's never happened with any religious body before. And now we're about 1 out of every 305 citizens of the United States is a member of the Church of Christ. Why? Because we retired. About the mid-70s, we retired and we quit having Bible studies. So we need to figure out how to get this ball rolling. We need to take everything that Rob brought to you last February and we need to put it into action. And that's what we're going to do this week. So we're going to start out with the model. You guys remember the model? You've got it on posters around your building. You've seen it for a year now. It's a 6-step model. It's not my model. It's not Rob's model. This is Jesus' model, as we're going to see later on this afternoon. This model was created by Jesus. The early day church followed this model. I was doing a seminar. Actually, in Oklahoma, we were doing some training at a congregation. And there was one of the elders came to me afterward, and he said, Keno, I don't like this model. He said, you guys are taking a business model and you're trying to put it into the church, and that's not right. You know, Chick-fil-A, they have a model like this. They may not call it a model. They may call it a pipeline, or they may call it a flow chart. American Airlines has one. Walmart has one. Any successful business has a business plan or a model that helps them to get from point A to point Z effectively and efficiently. If you don't have a model, you're not going to be a successful business. So he's right. Businesses do use this model. He was right on that part. What he was wrong on was that we took this and tried to put it into the church because Jesus was using this model. Hey, look, I'm pointing up here. Y'all just pretend I'm pointing back there. Jesus was using this model long before Chick-fil-A. Jesus was using this model long before Walmart or American Airlines. The early day church followed this model, and the early day church grew daily. They were added daily. People were being added to the church. Why is the Church of Christ not growing in America right now? Because we're not following this model. How come we can go to India? How come we can go to, I just got back about 8 or 9, 10 hours ago. I just got back from a missionary trip in Jamaica. They're growing down there. Why are they growing? Because they're following this model. I've got a friend that works in India. He's over there right now. Why are they growing? Because they're following this model. I've got a friend that spends a lot of time in Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania. Why are they growing? Because they're following this model. You pick the place that's growing, and I promise you they're following this model because it's Jesus' model. So let me ask you then, over the last year you've been kind of going through this, what's the most important step in this model? Is it baptisms? No, it's not baptisms. That's not the most important step in this model. Is it Bible studies? No, it's not Bible studies. That's not the most important step in this model. The most important step in this model is step one, contacts. Because if you don't have contacts, you don't have anybody to study with, and you don't have anybody to baptize. If you don't have fans, the NFL, there's no NFL without fans. There's no Walmart without customers, right? There's no American Airlines without passengers. There are no Bible studies if you don't have contacts, if you don't have somebody to study with. You guys are key to helping your elders and your preacher and your evangelists and those that are doing the Bible studies. You're key to helping them get these contacts. So that's where I want to spend time this morning. Now, underneath every one of these subheadings is a place that you can fit into evangelism. I think about Paul in 1 Corinthians when he's talking about how we're many members of one body, right? There's only one body, Ephesians 4:4. I think that was your topic. What did you do, one body? At Coedy, that was Dan's topic when we had our lectureship. There's one body. What's another name for the body? The church, right? There's one church. When you get past Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and a little bit of Acts, but pretty much the whole rest of the New Testament, if you're reading about the body of Christ, you are reading about the church of Christ. And he's the head of the church, Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22 and 23. He's the head of the body, which is the church. So we're many members of one body. That means that we're coming together and we're creating this church that Christ died to establish. Now, I could cut my right arm off and I could survive, but it would be much more difficult for me. I could not be as efficient necessarily as what I could be because now other parts of my body have to make up for the part that's not working or that's no longer there. So if you're making up a part of this body and you're not working and you're not doing your part, then that means other people have to do their part plus your part, and it's very, very difficult to grow like that. You can take 4, 5, 6 people, 10 people out of a congregation, and you can make a difference in the town. How many members do you guys on Sunday morning average?
160.
You take 160 people into a town, now you have an army. Now you can make a difference. You can absolutely change the culture of a city with 160 people. And brothers and sisters, I don't care how old you are, there's a job for you in this model. And I don't care if you're talking about a 3 or 4-year-old. We're going to talk about that a little later this week. But I have seen 3 and 4-year-olds be effective in evangelism. I have seen people be baptized because of compassion cards that a 5 or 6-year-old wrote to them. And they ended up coming and getting into a Bible study and gave their life to Christ. Everybody can be effective in evangelism. You have a role. We got to make sure we're doing the role that we've been given. So let's talk about contacts. There's different types of contacts that we're gonna deal with. One of them is the cold contact. This is the unchurched. This is the unlearned. They don't know the scriptures. They don't know anything about God. They don't go to services anywhere. Maybe they do, but a lot of them don't. This is somebody you have no relationship with them. You've never seen them before. How many of you, just by show of hands, love to knock on doors? Like to go door knocking? You just say, man, this Saturday, I can't wait for Saturday to get here because I'm going to go door knocking. How many of you have ever said that? Okay, well, you're about like everybody else in the church. We don't do it because we don't know how to do it. We don't do it because we don't know how to, we haven't been taught. How many of you have ever sat through a class on door knocking, like got formal training on door knocking? Okay, we'll talk about it later this week. You'll love it. It'll become one of your favorite things. All right, so if you went out and knocked on a door and you don't know who's on the other side of the door and they open that door, that is a cold contact. Let me ask you this. Can you teach a cold contact? Can you bring somebody like that to Christ? Sure you can. Absolutely you can. And you should be trying. But you just got to know in the back of your mind that it's very, very difficult. It takes a lot of work to bring a cold contact. I'm not telling you don't put in the work. You should put in the work. But just know that it's difficult and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work because you have to build a relationship with that person first. You cannot go out and knock on the door and just ask for a Bible study. They're not going to give it to you. You've got to build a relationship. You remember that saying? We've talked about it since the late 70s. We were talking, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you want to bring people to Christ, you've got to show them that you care about them. And so that's a cold contact. There's also warm contacts. Warm contacts, this is your friends, this is your neighbors, this is people that you know, that you're close to, you spend time with. your co-workers, you're standing on the assembly line with them, you're talking to these people, you're having conversations with these people on the regular, but they're not gospel conversations, right? So you're talking to them, you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table with your family, and you know that, 2/3 of them probably would not go to heaven if they choked on their turkey leg, but yet you don't say anything about it. That's a warm contact. These people are very, very teachable. You just have to know how to do it, and we'll talk about some of that this week. But they're very, very teachable. That's a warm contact. But there's one that's even hotter than that, and that's the visitors. Friends, if you have visitors come sit in your pews, that is as hot of a contact as you will ever get. On an average Sunday, how many visitors do you think you get?
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5? Some of them might be passing through. They're going somewhere. They're on vacation or traveling. They might be passing through. But some of those are going to be from here. When you have a visitor that sits in your pews that lives in this town, I'm telling you, they are ready to be baptized. They just don't know it yet. But you have got to get them into a Bible study. It's very easy to do. In fact, if you'll take what we're going to talk about in the next 20, 30 minutes, and you'll do this, I promise you, you'll see your baptisms go through you literally 80 to 85% of your visitors, you will be able to get into a Bible study. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. What do visitors want? Number one thing that you think that visitors want to do when they come to worship? Anybody? Or when they come here to visit? Anybody got any idea? What would you want to do if you were going to? What would you want out of a place that you went to visit?
Friendliness.
Friendliness. Amen to that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Because have any of you ever been to a congregation that wasn't friendly? I've been to some, folks. That's somewhere I don't want to go. I want to go to a congregation like this. I want to go to a congregation when I come through the door that people are smiling at me and they're shaking my hand. I want to go to a congregation where people are happy to have me at. I've been to congregations that wasn't the case. And that's not the kind of congregation I want to go back to. So that's exactly right. People want to see friendliness, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. I'm going to give you the number one. It's kind of a trick question. I'm going to give you the number one thing that people want to do when they come to a congregation to visit. That's it, folks. They want to sit down. They don't want to be caught by Gabby gossip at the front door. They don't want to have somebody patting them down, checking the FBI terror watch list. They don't want to be asked 102 questions about their life. They want to sit down. I was at a congregation just very recently in Illinois, and the preacher, the evangelist there, he was telling me that one of his elders didn't believe this was true. And he said that they had a couple come in one time, and he said everybody's just talking and talking and talking and talking and just being super friendly. That's what we do. We like to be friendly. And he said finally the person gets in and say like you're the elder right here, and the couple sits down here where Dan and Gwen are, and the man looks at his wife and he goes, whew, that was a lot. And he said it clicked for that elder. He said, you're right. They just want to sit down. So we need to let people sit down when they come to visit, because we've got some very important information that we need to collect. And we're only going to be able to get that if we let them sit down. So we're going to have a couple of teams, and I'll talk about those teams in a minute. I'll talk about what the role is. But first I want to talk to you about the different greetings that we have whenever people come in. One is the cold shoulder, right? Friends, I went to a congregation one time in Arkansas. I'm not going to tell you the town or the congregation, but it was a large congregation. Jamie and I used to own a magazine. It was a bull riding magazine. Anybody here fans of the PBR? We were the partner publication of the PBR. So wherever the Built Ford Tough series was, that's where Jamie and I were all year long, 42 states a year. We traveled all over the country, the PBR. Whenever Sunday morning would roll around, we would just Google where's the closest congregation, and that's the congregation we would go to. And we walked into a congregation of about 400 people in Arkansas. And we came through the front door, and they didn't have anybody at the front door greeting, but they had a visitor's welcome center. It's kind of like when you go into, you cross the state line, there's a visitor welcome center, right? They had this big half-moon shaped, big old counter, and it said great big, beautiful letters, Visitor Welcome Center. There was nobody in the Visitor Welcome Center, but they had one. And they had a bunch of paperwork on the Visitor Welcome Center, bulletins and articles and stuff you could get. And we walk in, and we're walking around this giant big foyer, and we're kind of meandering around looking for the auditorium. We go by, we kind of look at the papers, and we pick a few papers up off the Visitor Welcome Center, and we go sit down, and we go through the worship service, we get up and leave. Not one single person said one single word to us the entire time we were there. I'm just telling you, folks, that's not somewhere I'm trying to go worship at. I'm not going to go worship somewhere where no one can even say hello to me when I come in the door. after I started doing this, I was just doing, initially when I first started working part-time with the School of Evangelism, I was doing Sunday refreshes. So I just go in, I do 3 or 4 lessons on a Sunday just to re-motivate, re-energize the congregation. That was about all it amounted to. I had a deacon in a congregation in another state. He called me and he said, Keno, he goes, we need you to come up here. I got to get this congregation fired up. He said, I'm the only one that's working. And he was. And they're a congregation of about 60, and they were hitting their 10%. They're getting 6, 7 baptisms a year, but only because of this one man. Not even his wife wasn't even helping. It was just him alone. And he was wearing himself out. He was getting burnt out. He was getting frustrated. He was getting aggravated. He said, I need help. And he said, I've talked to my elders. They've agreed to let you come up. Will you come motivate the congregation? I said, I'll be there in a few weeks. So we worked it out, and we went up there. We walked in the front door, and one of the elders is standing there in the foyer, and a few other people. Don't even say a word to us. Like, the elders say nothing to us, right? So we walk in, I tell them hi, I introduce myself, and they just look at us. So I go on in, and I meet another elder, doesn't talk to us. I meet the preacher, who only spoke to me because I was speaking to him, and his answers were very yes, no, just very short. I could tell he had zero interest in having a conversation with me. So I meet this deacon, and he is the friendliest guy. He's just talking and excited. So we go through the Bible class, we go through the worship service, and they had a potluck lunch. So we go into the fellowship hall for this potluck lunch, and they have all the tables set up. They said, this deacon tells Jamie, now you go through the line first, So okay, so we go through the line, and we sit down at this table, and we watch every member going through this line, sitting over there, sitting over there, sitting over. I told Jamie, do we have the plague or something? Nobody is sitting with us. Now that didn't bother me. I get it. But if I was a visitor and that happened to me, there is no way I would ever go back to that place. Not one soul sat with us until that deacon, who was the last one through the line. We were done eating by the time he got over there. And he said, his wife didn't even sit with us. She went and sat at a different table. So we got done, and we went back into the auditorium, and we had the last 2 lessons. And when it was over with, people were about sprinting out of that building. We got out in the parking lot, and I took my suit coat off, and I was hanging it up in the back, kind of hunched down and trying to look for the hanger in the back seat. Jamie said, Keno, look at the parking lot. It looked like the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, these people are like peeling out, trying to get out. They could not get out of this parking lot fast enough. They absolutely wanted nothing to do with the visitor. They wanted nothing to do with evangelism. And nothing's changed. I really feel sorry for the guy. He's really doing all he can do, but he's getting burnt out on it. So that's cold shoulder, folks. I'm not going somewhere that gives me a cold shoulder, and neither will your visitors. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. How about the casual nod? So, maybe you're one of those people, you know a visitor comes in, you got to say something, but you don't know what to say, and you're not really a people person, so to speak. So let's just say Dan, he and Gwen, they came, they're visiting, and I know I got to say something. I'm just going to do this. So. And then I go sit down and think, whoo, I acknowledge him. That's not, there's more to it than that. Obviously, we want to acknowledge them. We're glad they're here, but we got to do a little bit more than that, but we don't want to do too much. Are y'all recording this morning? Is this being is there any way my mom will see this seminar?
Maybe. Look at the guy up in the booth.
Okay, well, if y'all know my mom, don't tell her. I'm going to talk about her for a minute. Overboard. I love my mom to death, and my mom loves visitors. But folks, when we have a visitor, up until we got her trained, now she's trained, so she's trained, she's good. But up until we got her trained, when someone come through that door, my mom would grab them the second they came in. And now listen, my mom was born December 6th of 1951. And whenever they were done, they would know everything that's happened in her life since December 6th of 1951. Our son said one time, well, we don't know nothing about them, but they know everything about Nana. I mean, literally, she just wanted to be super friendly. She was glad we had a visitor, and so she would catch him out there, and she would just talk and talk and talk and talk, and no one else could even get a word in. And then what happens is, one of the men would get up in the podium, they'd say, good morning, we're ready to get started or whatever, and they would start with announcements, and then that visitor would come in and sit in the very back, and then as soon as services was over, they would get up and leave. And we never knew who they were. We didn't have a visitor card. We didn't have any contact information. How are we going to study with someone if we don't know who they are? Mom, who was that? Well, I don't think I ever got their name. No, because you were talking the whole time. You got to get their information, Mom. So we put her on a pew greeter team, and she gets to do this now, and she's trained how to do it. but we don't want to go overboard. People do not want to answer 20 questions. People do not want you prying into every aspect of their life. So we want to be friendly, but we don't want to be too friendly. So let's talk about the Christian greeting. The Christian greeting is, there's some information that we need to get. So we're going to be friendly. We need to get their contact information. There's some questions we're going to ask them. So to do that, we've got to have 2 greeter teams. And you guys may have this. I don't know. If you do, let me know, and we can go through this. But one, you need to have door greeters. Now this morning, you were there. Where's Curtis at? Is he in here? Anyway, is his name Curtis that greeted us when we came in? Gave us a bulletin, right? So we came in, he gave us a bulletin. That's a door greeter. That you need somebody on the door that's going to welcome people when they come in. They're going to hand them a bulletin. They're going to thank them for coming. And then they're going to show them the auditorium. Is there any other access? Is that the main place where people come in at?
Main place.
Okay, so you're good there. I've been to I was in a congregation recently on the north side of Nashville about a month ago. There's literally, I think there was something like 6 or 7 different entrances into this building. We left from there, we went to South Carolina, and there was entrances on the opposite side of the building. This was a huge building with corridors and passageways, and if somebody came in the wrong door, they would miss services because it would take them an hour to find the auditorium. So if you're in that situation, you need to have a door greeter on every door where someone might come into. Now, your guys, it's very, very easy. Someone comes in and you can just say, hey, glad to have you here this morning. Here's one of our bulletins, and you can just see right over here is our auditorium, and it's just a straight shot. That's the way we are at Coweta. But if you have somebody come in a different door, you might have to have that door greeter lead them to the auditorium. Here's all the door greeter is going to do, and teenage boys are great for this, but anybody can do it. But here's what the door greeter is going to do. They're going to smile. They're going to thank them for coming. Hey, welcome to the Owasso Church of Christ this morning. We've got a bulletin here for you, and if you'll come right in here, right inside is our auditorium. Now, let me say this. How many of you are sitting where you sit every single week, like when you come in here? Like every time you come in for Bible class, we're just, no judgment, just raise your hand if you're sitting where you always sit. It's funny how many more hands go up after you tell them no judgment, right? Listen, folks, it's the same way for us. We were about 6 weeks ago, we were in South Florida, and we were in a congregation. Their auditorium was set up almost identical to Coweta. They had the exact same chairs arranged in the exact same way. My wife sat in her seat, except she was in Florida. So, we're creatures of habit. You just sit in your seat, right? But not when a visitor's sitting there. Because the door greeter is going to say, right in here's the auditorium. Just go on in and listen to this. There's no assigned seating. Sit anywhere you like. Friends, I'm not judging. You can sit anywhere you want to on every single week, but if somebody is in your seat and they're visiting, please do not ask them to move. I've seen that happen before. I saw an elderly man stand with his arms crossed staring at a visitor until they said, are we in your seat? And he told them yes, and they got up and moved. Please do not do that. But let's say that Dan and Gwen are visiting, right? And so if that's normally my seat, I'm going to let them sit there, but I'm also not going to sit here. And everybody's got to do this, right? So if you're not on a visitor team, you've got to be, if you're not on a pew greeter team, you've got to be pew greeter team support. So you've got to let them do their job. And part of that is you've got to leave the seat in front of the visitor open because our pew greeters have to sit there. Do you have pew greeters currently? Pew greeting teams? Is anybody in here on a pew greeting team? Okay, so what's your name?
Ken.
Ken and Jolynn? Ken and Jolynn. So Ken and Jolynn, they're going to greet Dan and Gwen, right? They've got to be able to sit here. Now, we used to say you could sit behind, but I don't want a visitor having to turn around and try to talk to me. I would rather me be the one turning around where it's more comfortable for them. So Ken and Jolynn are going to sit right here on this seat, and they're going to be the pew greeters. Okay, so just pretend I'm Ken, put an O on the end, Keno, right? So I'm going to come up, and this is what I'm going to say when I greet them. First of all, we welcome them. Let me get caught up. Okay, I'm going to do this. Hey, good morning. I'm Keno. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. What's your name?
Dan.
Dan, it's nice to meet you. What's your name? Gwen, it's good to have you here this morning. Are you guys just passing through the area, or are you new to the area? Now, if he says we're just passing through, I got to find some things out. One, I'm going to ask him where he's going. I'm going to say, oh, yeah, where are you traveling to? And he's going to say, oh, I'm going up to Michigan, right? And I'm going to say, well, where are you from originally? Or where do you live? And he's going to say, oh, we live in Dallas. We're going from Dallas to Michigan, and they pass through here, and it's Sunday morning, they stop to worship. Then I'm going to ask him, so you guys, have you ever been to a Church of Christ? I'm not going to say, are you members of the Church of Christ? But I'm going to say, have you ever been to a Church of Christ before? And then he's going to say, oh, yeah, I preached for 40 years in Michigan. What are you talking about? I've been in the church my whole life. Well, that's great, but that's not who we're looking for. Now, I'm not going to tell them to leave, but that's not who we're looking for, right? And so I'm going to redirect my effort. I'm going to say, well, hey, man, it's great to have you guys this morning. And you know, we'll help you find the service in keeping with the Scriptures. And then I'm going to move on and look for other visitors. If he tells me they're going from Dallas to Michigan, but he's never been to the Church of Christ before, then I'm going to say, well, are you moving to Michigan? Or are you just going on vacation? And I'm going to find out a little bit more, because if he's going on vacation, then I'm going to find out what part of Dallas he's from, and I'm going to find a congregation in the Dallas area, and I'm going to send I'm still going to get his information, but I'm going to relay that information to them and say, hey, look, you had a couple that stopped in to worship with us, so they're looking for something. Here's their information. They said they'd be back in a week or two. You might reach out to them and see if you can get them in a Bible study. Now, if he says, no, we're moving to Michigan, I'm going back home, then I'm going to call Michigan and I'm going to say, hey, you got a couple that's moving up there. They stopped here on the way. Here's their information. Try to reach out to them as soon as they get into town and see if you can get them into a Bible study. We're still going to work with. I could work with him through Zoom. I could have Bible study. I do that all the time, have Bible studies all over the place with people. But it would be much more effective if there could be a church in his area that's involved in that. I had a study with a couple in Wisconsin. I went through lesson 1 and lesson 2 of Back to the Bible, but I reached out to a preacher in their area and included him on that study so that when it got to lesson 3, he could take care of them and baptize them and take care of the new convert study. So we want to find somebody on whichever end of the spectrum, either in Dallas or in Michigan. We want to have, wherever they're going to end up at, we want to include a congregation from that area that can make them feel at home and they can study with them. So if I go up and I ask that same question, I introduce myself, and he says, no, we're new to the area. I just took a job at American Airlines, and we're new to the area, and we just got a copy of House to House, Heart to Heart in the mail, and thought we'd come up here and give you guys a try and see what it's about. Then this will say, I'm going to run grab it, and I'll be where they're at. What do you have in your visitor bag? Do you remember?
Coffee cup, pen.
I love the coffee cup idea. That's a great. My brother does that at the congregation he's at. Just some mints, just little stuff like that. Have any of you ever been to what's the name of that town, Jamie, over there by Bakersfield? I can't remember the name. Tehachapi. Have any of you ever been to Tehachapi, California before? Is that my bell? Forget Tehachapi, California. We're going to keep trucking. Okay, so I'm going to get that bag. I'm going to come back over and I'm going to give him the bag. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to sit right here. I'm going to say, well, here we got a gift for you. Now, how do you get people's contact information right now? What do you do to get their contact information?
Talk to puke readers.
What do you do to get their contact information? Do you have cards in the pew back, or where do you have your cards at?
Cards at the welcome desk.
At the welcome desk.
We get their name and address.
Okay, so how do you do that? If I'm a visitor, greet me as a visitor. What would you do?
Say hello. I'm glad you're here. So we'd like to send, after their name and all that, so we'd like to send thank you notes to our visitors. Would you like to come over? If I get your address.
And is that the 5 minutes? That wasn't 5 minutes. I'm getting ripped off. Okay, so you physically get it? Okay, that's what I want you to do. I've seen so many congregations, they put a card in the pew back and they say, good morning, we'd like to welcome you to our services. And we ask if you're visiting with us that you get a card out of the pew back and you fill it out. And they never do that. You're doing the right thing. You fill out the card. That's the only way you're going to get their information, is if you personally fill out the card. So now you've got their information, then I'm going to sit right here, and then after services, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, well, it's great to have you guys this morning. I'll tell you what, we've got a tradition. We like to take people out to lunch. Would you guys like to go get some lunch today? Of course they're going to. Dan likes to eat. He's going to say yes. 50% of the time they may say no, and that's okay if they say no, because I've got their contact information. That's what I needed. But if I can get him to lunch, then I can start going through my introduction questions and maybe move into my transition questions. And we'll review those again. Rob taught them when he was here, but we'll review those again. Here's the point that I want to make, and you better believe I'm going to get this finished up somewhere else in other lessons this week. But here's the point that I want to make to you folks. If you don't have their contact information, you can't study with them. And we have tried 9 jillion different ways to do this, and this is the most effective way. If you can get their contact information, Then you can write the compassion cards. And if you write the compassion cards, you can make the transition visits. And we're going to talk about transition visits later. I know you guys have made a lot of them, but a transition visit is not one visit. A transition visit could be 30 visits. You've got to continue to make those transition visits because you've got to continue to build that relationship. That's what's going to turn it into a Bible study. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I have literally spent one day with somebody, one lunch, and had somebody in a Bible study. But it has also taken me 5 years to get somebody in a Bible study. Every account is going to be different. Every contact's going to be different. We need people that can walk into Walmart and get in a conversation with anybody that have a good sound knowledge of the scriptures. We need you on the pew greeter team. We don't need Frowny Fred on the pew greeter. If you have a Frowny Fred, that's great. We will find a position. Frowny Fred has a position on the model, and we'll find that, but it's not as a pew greeter. We need people that are friendly, but we need people that know what their job is, and they want to get there, and they're going to be able to accomplish that job. You have got to follow this model for it to be effective. I'm not telling you there's no other ways to do it, but what I'm telling you is we tried about every way you could think of, and it doesn't work. We tried even giving them the bag and saying, look, here's your visitor bag. There's a contact card in there. If you'll fill that out and leave it in the collection plate, they don't do it. The only way you're going to get that information is you have got to physically write it down, just like what she said. We're a card-sending congregation, and we'd like to get your information so we can mail you a card. Can I get your name and address? And that will work 99% of the time. Unless they're wanted by the FBI, they're going to give you their information almost every single time. Do you ever have trouble getting their information? No, you don't. Now, you've got to take that contact card, and who does the compassion cards? Is that person in here? You've got to, who's in charge of the compassion card ministry? Brent?
Brent Mercer.
Where's Brent at? Raise your hand, Brent. Brent in here? He's ringing my bell, ain't he? I'm going to be having a talk with Brent. No, I'm just kidding. You've got to get that contact card to Brent because he's got to get that ready for compassion cards. All right, look, I'm out of time, but I'm going to finish this up. I'm going to pepper this in through the rest of my talks. Let's pause. Let's get ready for the morning worship. I appreciate your attention. If you have any questions, if you're on a pew greeter team, if you're on a door greeter team, and you have questions, we got 15 minutes. Let's visit. If you want to be on a pew greeter team or you want to be on a door greeter team, you need to get with David Combs or get with one of your elders or get with Dan or whoever your evangelism coordinator is and let them know, and they will train you how to do this. Thank you so much for your attention. We'll pause for a morning worship.